Alright, yes, I am going to be doing a Formula 1 review. I've debated this, but I think I'm going to do it because you know what? It's only one race, so why not? Let's talk about an F1 race. The season finale race, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Overall, this race really there wasn't much excitement except the other positions. Not much happened, except at the early part of the race when the server crashed and disabled DRS for a good chunk of the race. That was weird. That was weird when DRS disabled because of a server. It's like, damn. What was it? What was it? DRS.exe chose to crash? Damn. But either way, it was just like most races this year. Lewis Hamilton starts on pole, leads every single lap, dominates, and wins easily. Verstappen came home second, and Charles Leclerc came home third. He still keeps his podium after the investigation when Ferrari put too much fuel in the car. All Ferrari did was just get handed a massive fine. So yeah, that wraps it up here for this F1 season. Lewis Hamilton gets his 11th win of the season, his 84th career win for the six-time champion. So that only puts Lewis Hamilton 7 wins away from tying Michael Schumacher's 91 for most wins by a driver in F1 history. Now, I think it's safe to say Lewis Hamilton is going to break that record. He's going to pass it next year, without a doubt. I don't see it, how he doesn't. Or at least in the foreseeable future. Like, entering 2020, Lewis Hamilton will still be the heavy title favorite. As Lewis will look for his 7th title and his 4th consecutive, as Lewis has completed the three-peat, And of course, the 2019-2020 off-season begins. I mean, most lineups are already set. It's just mainly the main question is at Red Bull, who will get the second ride? Will Red Bull stick with Alexander Albon? Will they go back to Pierre Gasly? Or will Red Bull go with the Russian torpedo Daniel Kvyat and his Russian rave music? We'll have to see. And there's also that question mark at Alfa Romeo if they're going to go with Giovinazzi or not next year. I imagine they will. I don't see how they don't. And of course, the last race for Robert Kubica and Nico Hulkenberg. Too bad Hulkenberg doesn't have a ride in 2020. That's just sad. Considering that Hulkenberg is more worthy, there's at least 2 rides in F1 Hulkenberg is more worthy at than most drivers. Like, he's more worthy of Lance Stroll's ride at Racing Point, and he's more worthy of Romain Grosjean's ride at Haas. But, it is what it is, he did really well in midfield equipment. Just too bad he couldn't get a race win. Too bad he couldn't get a win. Damn. But, yeah. Of course, next year, McLaren's still on the rise. Renault's going to have a new driver lineup. Esteban Ocon returns. Let's just hope Ocon doesn't try and screw Max Verstappen out of a win like Ocon did at Brazil. But, yeah. And of course, there's also going to be a lot of drama entering the 2020 offseason, heading to 2021 with the regulation changes and that silly season. Because, there's also reports about Sebastian Vettel leaving Ferrari to go back to Red Bull. And now there's reports that Lewis Hamilton could leave Mercedes after 2020 and go to Ferrari. I think Mercedes said there's like a 75% chance that Hamilton returns to Mercedes, but it's up to Lewis at the end of the day. Because Lewis hasn't signed an extension yet after 2020. As everyone's trying to find their rides, trying to get into the right car ahead of the 2021 regulation changes. So yeah, you look at Lewis Hamilton, he's had a very dominant run with Mercedes, winning 5 world driver titles, making Mercedes one of the great team of the 2010s. 6 straight, like they won 6 straight constructor titles. Like, that's a dynasty right there. Domination. And yeah, in terms of the best driver in Formula 1 in the 2010s, yeah, we don't have to debate this any further. It's obvious it's Lewis Hamilton by a landslide with Vettel in second. I mean, Lewis Hamilton had, 73 wins this decade and 5 championships. Easily the best driver in Formula 1 this decade by a country mile. But Sebastian Vettel didn't trail that far behind. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for another F1 season. 2020, there's going to be 22 races. 2 new races added to the calendar with F1 going back to the Netherlands. And F1 next year making a stop in Vietnam. So we're going to go to Vietnam. What was the cost of adding these 2 races? Losing Germany. As F1 will not go back to Germany or the Hockenheim Ring, or even the Nürburgring, because of contract disputes. Damn. Hockenheim's a really good track. German race fans are a really good crowd. Unfortunate. But oh well. We move on. So yeah, 2020 is going to be an interesting schedule ahead of the regulation changes. And of course, there's also going to be the trial runs of the 2021 regulation rules being implemented in sometime in 2020. So yeah, of course, start of December, we end the F1 season. Of course, F1 will be back in mid-March. And of course, NASCAR comes back in 77 days. I am thinking about doing a NASCAR off-season, silly season recap video. I'm just mainly waiting to see on what happens with Daniel Suarez before I get into it. Because that's the main piece left in the silly season, is what happens with Daniel Suarez. Once we find out what truly happens with him, then I'll get started on that. But yeah, that's really all I gotta say. It's gonna be an interesting offseason to see who ends up in the second Red Bull ride with Max Verstappen. But yeah, anyway, and let's just hope that this time Red Bull doesn't end up behind the 8 ball like they have every year with the aerodynamics and having to catch up till the end of the season. Hopefully this time Red Bull doesn't have to do that shit and we can have 3 competitive cars throughout the year. But yeah, and hopefully we can have a second Red Bull driver compete with Verstappen and win races. Then we can have potentially 6 championship contenders. But yeah, anyway, that's all I gotta say, folks. Just a quick F1 review, just get my shot at this. Since, it's the last race of the F1 season, so why not? But yeah, that's all I gotta say, folks. Hope everyone's a great day, and yeah, peace out.